Okay, so this is a super classic climb at Capon Park in Columbia, Missouri, called the Open Book. Um, when I first started climbing at Capon, it was called a 5'9", but most people these days call it a 5'10" or B, just because the sequence at the top is really tough. And 99% of the time, this climb is top roped, but I wanted to do something different, and I decided to trad climb this. So the first placement here is basically just a gift that the rock has given us. There's a natural pillar that you can slot a sling through, and then you've got a multi-directional bomber placement that you don't have to worry about for your first piece. And you don't really have to use any of your actual trad gear, so that's nice. Anytime a climb has one of these, it's so great to be able to just wrap that sling around there and clip it. For the next piece, there's just a parallel crack coming up here, and I decided to put a torque nut, or just a hex, in there. Um, DMM calls them torque nuts, but they're just hexes. And their red one just fits in there really nice, and it's really quick to place it too, because it sort of tapers a little bit, so it just falls right into place. Here, there it goes. And give it a little tug there, and we're good to go. And then for the next piece after that, like after this section, there's another parallel crack, and I decided to go with a tri-cam there, and that was probably the sketchiest placement on this whole route. But this one I feel like is an optional placement anyway. We're not very far past the last piece of gear, and I really just put it here just to make it more of a trad climb, I guess. But I stuck that big tri-cam in there, it felt good, and then I put an extender on it just because that carabiner's kind of really back in the crack there. I'm not super big on extending like every single placement like a lot of trad climbers are. If I'm running straight up and there's not going to be a lot of rope drag, if there's not a lot of back and forth, I don't really go for the extenders all too much. But I just try to keep the rope in one line, and that's all I really worry about with that. I wasn't too sure about that placement. It started to wobble a little, so I gave it a few more tugs as I was going past there. Now, if you're really crafty, you can actually find a no-hands rest right here that I utilize. It's kind of one of my favorite rests. You can just sort of hang out there and think about what you're going to do on the crux, because up until now, this climb hasn't been too rough, but it's about to get pretty serious here. And because of that, I'm going to place my last bit of gear in this crack above my head. And because I know I've got the crux coming up, I go ahead and put two pieces in. The first one's my trusty pink tri-cam here. Stick that bad boy in. But when I gave it a tug, it flipped over, which I didn't like, so I had to get it back in there the right way. You can place them flipped over like that, but then they're just a glorified nut, and you like that camming action. That's kind of the point of a tri-cam. So got that one in there, and I extended it because there's a little bit of an overhang here, so I didn't want to have any rope drag going over that. And then the second piece I just slotted in was the link cam. Fits in easy, nothing to see there. It's just jam it right in, you're good. If I can just get that one clipped, we'll be ready to do the crux. Now, just so you know, it's my 10-year-old man in the drone, and this is actually his first time piloting the drone for filming purposes. So if you have any notes on the photography, keep in mind it's a 10-year-old doing it, so try to cut him some slack. I do kind of climb out of the frame a little bit here, which, he'll get better at it as he gets more practice. This crux move is is a pretty fun little boulder problem. You get your feet up into the book, and then you got to find the handholds up here. They're not super obvious at first, but once you learn where they are, you got kind of a funky undercling, and then if you can get your feet on top, you are golden. And that is the book. If you ever get out to Capon Park, it's kind of a must-do. It's definitely one of the higher rated climbs out there. It's not the hardest, not the easiest, but it's a lot of fun. And Flynn was doing a little victory dance with the drone here. And now I'm just standing there thinking, oh, how am I going to get all that gear back? I'm like, oh, I got to set up a top rope and rappel down to get all that stuff, don't I? So I ended up just dropping the rope and walking around and then hauling it back up there to get all the gear, because I didn't have anybody who wanted to follow and clean it for me. But that's fine. And that's it. See y'all later.